What are
in world
you
history.
talking about?
Yeah.
Will you just
That's a fact.
Wait,
Shut up.
Stop.
Wayne, please.
Hey, moderator.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, moderator.
Wait.
Do you allow?
Stop.
Do you allow him to say shut
please.
up?
Going to get started right now. Thank you for coming out. I believe this is the Hillary Clinton great president or greatest president debate. Now, in fact, what it is the huge debate over whether or not Donald Trump is a truly terrible and awful person or whether he'll simply be as bad as Barack Obama as president. I am Nick Gillespie, the moderator of the debate. I'm with Reason Magazine, Reason.com, Reason TV. Thank you all for coming out, and thanks to the Scousins for creating over the past decade or more just a great event that we all enjoy coming to every year. I am going to run down the list. We have 2 people who are pro-Trump, 2 people who are anti-Trump, each of them in a staggered set. Will get 5 minutes to lay out their case for Donald Trump. Then we will allow the participants or the debate panelists to mud wrestle a little bit, and then we're going to open it up to have about 20 or 25 minutes of pro and con questions and comments from the audience. So we'll get right to it. Let's go down the list. I have asked each panelist to introduce themselves in less than 30 seconds, and it's going to be a real challenge for all of them, but especially Wayne Allyn Root.
Hey, everyone. How are you? My name is Wayne Allyn Root. My friends call me War. I was the Libertarian vice presidential nominee in 2008. I'm back to the GOP, big supporter of Donald Trump for the first day from last spring before even Donald Trump was a supporter of Donald Trump.
And Wayne,
best-selling author and TV personality.
And Wayne, what was the occupation of your father?
I'm a son of a butcher.
All right.
You
very
like that
important.
And by the way, in my hand is a note from Donald Trump this morning congratulating me and thanking me for going on Newsmax TV last night and defending him. Handwritten note from Donald Trump just points out what a great, special human being he really is. Nobody does that. Nobody does that.
So awesome.
Okay, Dan, lay it on us. 30 seconds of Dan Mangru.
Hi, my name is Dan Mangru. As you guys might remember, I was actually here when Donald Trump introduced him last year when he was here at FreedomFest, and able to kind of kick off a national firestorm. A lot of folks know me from the Mangru Report, which is on Fox Business, and now I'm an entrepreneur. We have many different businesses, including in mobile apps, as well as healthcare.
All right, thank you. Jeff?
My name is Jeffrey Tucker. I'm the founder of Liberty.me and the director of content for the Foundation for Economic Education. I was here last year when Donald Trump spoke. I was deeply alarmed at what he said, because I believe in freedom. I don't believe he does. And so a few weeks later, I wrote an article in Newsweek magazine called, "Is Donald Trump a fascist?" My answer was yes.
All right.
So,
and we'll hear the full case in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm Matt Welch. I'm the editor-at-large at Reason Magazine, which is a reference to my gut. I was the editor-in-chief of the magazine for 8 years, co-author of a phenomenal book, at least half of it, with Nick Gillespie called The Declaration of Independence, Why Libertarian Politics Can Fix What's Wrong with America. And I have in my hand a handwritten note from Nick Gillespie calling me a douchebag.
All right. And by the way, Matt wrote the good half of the Declaration of Independence, but what's interesting is that most readers can't tell which is which. So, okay, let's start. You've got 5 minutes. Wayne, go. What's your case?
Oh, I'm not getting up there to do the case?
Yeah, why don't you sit down and...
Sit down and do the case? All right. So, listen, well, I'm going to pace, because I'm not a sitter. I don't sit. I never sit. I'm like Donald Trump. I'm a man of action and motion. So, listen, I won the Libertarian vice presidential nomination in 2008, came very close to winning the presidential nomination. I did it out of the blue. No one had ever heard of me. I'd never been a libertarian. I didn't know a soul in the Libertarian Party. I think I was the test case for Donald Trump. Very similar beliefs, very similar attitudes, very similar outgoing, outspoken personalities, very similar energy levels. And I think I proved that you can go an awful long way with that energy level. I think libertarians, I'm not here to make the case, by the way. No one should be believing that I'm here to make the case that Donald Trump is a libertarian. I'm not making that case. No one thinks he's a libertarian. He's a combination of conservative, populist, and nationalist. And by the way, I'm someone who believes no matter what the question is, the answer is America first, America first, America first, America first. Screw the rest of the world. America first. And always, and always. You can't spend your life worrying about the rest of the world first, or you wind up with President Obama and this economy and this incredible mess around the world. Donald Trump has struck an incredible theme, an incredible pulse in the American people. He's a populist, a nationalist, and a bit of a conservative, but most importantly, I think, for my purposes, a capitalist. And I never once, when I was running for the LP presidential nomination and won the VP slot, I never deceived anyone. I have libertarian leanings. I believe in freedom. I believe in smaller government, but I believe in capitalism above all else because it all starts with money. You can't be free without money. If government takes 80% of your money, you're not free. So I don't worry about little issues, side issues, and distractions that the average American doesn't even know or understand. They want a job, and they want a chance to take home their money. And they don't want the job to be 2 cents an hour like in China or India or Mexico. And they all understand that free trade, which I believe in with every fiber of my body, is a massive failure because it isn't free. It's a lie. It's a made-up name. Real free trade is free. We're not exhibiting it, and we're not living in a capitalist society. We're living in a crony capitalist society. If you want to know whose side you should be on, because there's only 2 candidates, please don't try and tell me there's a third or a fourth. There aren't. Okay. It's either Hillary or it's Donald Trump. Hillary accepted $19 million in speaking fees from Goldman Sachs and the biggest corporations on Wall Street, and they hate Donald Trump's guts. If you're a libertarian, you may disagree with Donald Trump on many issues. There's a multitude of things I disagree with Donald Trump on, especially as an example, eminent domain. But in the end, the guy or the gal who takes $19 million from Goldman Sachs is beholden to big business and Wall Street. Now, I founded in the early 2000s the Nevada chapter of the Republican Jewish Coalition. That was before I joined the LP. And the Republican Jewish Coalition is literally the most powerful organization in the entire United States for its size. In the last election, the board of directors of the Republican Jewish Coalition, the board alone gave $19.7 million to Mitt Romney. Do you know what that board has given to Donald Trump? $5,400. If that doesn't convince a libertarian, the $19 million to Hillary by Wall Street firms in speaking fees and almost $20 million to Mitt Romney by Republican Jewish Coalition board members who are the biggest business CEOs in America, and now nothing to Donald Trump. Aren't you getting the picture, folks? This is about the little guy against the giant corporations and big government. And Donald Trump will always fight on behalf of the little guy. Last thing I want to say in this opening salvo, I wrote a book called The Murder of the Middle Class about all of this. And it was 3 years ago. And this book has an entire chapter in it devoted to the perfect Republican candidate for president. And I described that candidate as someone who was a conservative, combined with a nationalist, combined with a populist, combined with a television star, preferably a reality TV star, combined with a celebrity, combined with a showman, combined with a capitalist businessman. And you know what? Central Casting sent Donald Trump. He is the perfect candidate for President of the United States. If you want lower taxes, if you want smaller government, and yes, he will absolutely fight for smaller government because he's the cheapest individual I've ever met in my life. I'm devoted my life to Donald Trump 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I've yet to get a check for $1. He doesn't spend money. Donald Trump is the tightest guy in the world, and that's how he's going to run this country. And you look at the other side, Hillary Clinton and Obama, they spend not millions, not billions, trillions, and it's your money. Donald Trump lost in casinos after making millions that he lost. It was with his money. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, everything they do is with your money. They're loose with your money. That's why we need Donald Trump for President of the United States. Thank you.
Jeff? Mr. Tucker? You can sit, stand, or lay down. It's all the same.
Sir?
You can sit, stand, or lay down.
All right.
But you got 5 minutes. Go.
All right. So, yeah. You want government to be cut? You're going to vote for Donald Trump? Come on. Let's get real here. It's a truism in the world of liberty that we're threatened from the left and we're threatened from the right. It's always been the case. We've lived most of our lives being threatened by the left. What we're seeing with the rise of Donald Trump is something very different. It is a recreation of authoritarianism under a right-wing framework designed to manipulate you, tap into your so-called patriotism, nationalism, and maybe latent racialism to build a larger state to oppress you. This is a man who has threatened one of the great companies in the United States, Amazon.com. He says that if he gets to be president, he's going to tax them, he's going to break them up with antitrust regulation. As a candidate, he's saying this. This is before he has power. And he's threatened the Washington Post with censorship. He's going to shut them down, make it impossible for them to criticize the president. My friends, this is a resurrection of the Alien and Sedition Acts of 1798. Fundamentally un-American. This is a man who's praised internment camps, praised restrictions on Germans during World War II, has had nothing but wonderful things to say about FDR and all his violations of liberties. Look, this is not just hodgepodge statism, my friends. This is a foreign ideology that's being shoved down. I'm sorry if you're being tricked by this. Wise up. Read The Road to Serfdom. Read Mises' Omnipotent Government. The ideology this man represents is brown-shirted fascism. Hardcore, raw, rude, dangerous to your liberties. He will not cut taxes. He will not cut the government. He wants to run you and your life as if he is your owner and your CEO. Vote for him and you will suffer. And also, my friend Wayne is wrong. There is a third choice. There's a third choice, a true libertarian choice, a liberal choice. His name is Gary Johnson. You say he can't win? He may not be able to win, but let me tell you, you will be doing the right thing and not contributing your vote to driving this country down into depression, which is exactly what his protectionist anti-immigration policies will do. He is an authoritarian and a statist and your enemy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We're getting there. Okay, Mr. Mangru, lay it on us.
All right. Will all of the Hillary Clinton supporters please stand up? And my glasses must not be doing so well. I mean, I clean them. I don't see many people standing up. Any. Nobody's standing up. And that's because everybody in this room knows categorically that Hillary Clinton is unfit to be president of the United States. I think it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to know. Woo! So I love doing these kinds of debates. I know nothing is so American than debating. Reminds me of Lincoln Douglas. It just reminds me of the free exchange of ideas. I love these kinds of things. And so one of the great things that was just brought up was Jeff Bezos, Amazon.com, Washington Post. Well, Trump, he's being very unfair to Jeff Bezos. He's attacking him. He's going to shut him down. Well, what does Jeff Bezos say? You know what, Trump? I got 20 reporters on Donald Trump. Well, how many you got on Hillary? None.
Exactly.
Zero. He's got 20 reporters on Donald Trump trying to dig up what he did in the 1980s, what he had for breakfast, different things you can do about him, not doing his real job to the public in terms of from the American media, which is actually reporting honestly, finding out the truth with both candidates. He mentioned the 19 million Wayne did from Wall Street banks. That doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to the Clinton Foundation. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that she thought it was okay to disclose, let alone the billions that have come in from foreign nations that have been funneled through Canada. Because what the number one contributor to the Clinton Foundation actually has been a Canadian charity set up by Bill and Hillary Clinton that does not have to disclose their donors. So if Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton thought it was okay to disclose, Saudi Arabia, other hostile actors that have given money to them after that she made speeches and trips there. Lord knows what she's hiding in Canada. So we don't want to find that out. But really the focus of this debate is Trump, good or bad? And so what we tend to see is that whenever we don't really know how to attack somebody, we give them a label. So this person is a fascist. This person is this, they're that. We compare them to Hitler. That's usually a very good, just like Hitler. These labels get tossed around so freely that they lose their meaning. You know, so many people get compared to Hitler. Hitler was a really bad guy. You know, like, this is life and death. Like, they used to go into towns, and they used to make 2 lines. They used to go a line for the people that lived, and the line for the people that didn't get to live. That's fascism. That's racism. Somebody giving an empty threat or negotiating and using free speech, that's not fascism. That's real fascism when you talk about Nazism and, you know, looking at actions. And so many people, you know, they say, well, we look at Trump's words and he's a fascist and he's a bigot and he's this and he's that. Well, aren't we tired of words? We want to judge people by actions, not words. I mean, we've heard politicians tell us everything we want for years. And what have we got? Nothing. Nothing from them. So when you look at Trump, what he's done, in terms of, Donald Trump has actually hired more female executives at his company, the Trump Organization, than he has males. And he pays them more. Donald Trump actually, in Palm Beach, which is where I'm from, actually broke down barriers, allowed gays to enter his clubs when they weren't allowed Jews to enter his clubs when many Palm Beach clubs didn't allow Jews. He's broken down so many social and cultural barriers in his own personal business. That's what he's done action-wise. So don't believe the words, or don't be misled by the words, because what is Donald Trump more than anything else? He's a negotiator. So when you negotiate, do you start actually very close to the other person that you want to negotiate with? No, you start out at one end, they're at their end, and you meet up in the middle. Donald Trump understands that. So when he says things about immigration, we're going to take 11 million people, we're going to round them all up, it's probably not going to happen. But what he's going to get is that the 350,000 people that are sitting incarcerated, that are illegal immigrants, that have committed crimes, they're going to go back home. What he's going to get is an end of federal funding to sanctuary cities. What he's going to get is the enforcement of our laws.
Yeah.
And ask yourself this question. If you're for sending back the illegals who've committed crimes back to their native countries, if you are for eliminating federal funding to sanctuary cities, if you are for enforcing the laws that we have here in the United States of America, then, ladies and gentlemen, you are for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. I just want to point out, Hitler had originally, when he took office, he was going to kill 18 million Jews. But, so it's negotiations, right? Finally, in the opening...
Impartial moderator. Yeah. Impartial moderator.
Impartial moderator.
Batting cleanup, ladies and gentlemen, late of the California Angels of Los Angeles and Anaheim and probably some cities in Arizona in a couple of years. Matt Welch, you've got 5 minutes.
2 quick things. Keep booing Nick Gillespie is 1. And then 2, I really resent my co-panelists for making me stand up. I was super comfortable in that chair, and I thought we could work that out. I'm glad that my good friend, Dr. Wayne Allyn Root, talked about capitalism, which is something that I think everybody in this room rightly treasures. Because I don't think that Donald Trump has a really good idea about how international capitalism works. And that is not some small side issue. That's kind of a crucial thing. It's kind of how we got rid of 1 billion chronically extreme poor people in the last 25 years. And I don't mean get rid of in the final solution way, but they stopped being poor through international capitalism. Donald Trump gave a big speech about capitalism and economics a few weeks back. And he claimed as a goal for the United States that we need to become economically independent, by which he meant we make our own goods, we buy and sell to each other, we keep our jobs here, and we make America great and get rich. There was another person, quite a few people, who have believed in the myth of economic independence before. I've been in many countries, I've lived in many countries where people thought that you could make all your stuff yourself and sell it to one another yourself. Romania was such a country. It didn't work out well in Romania. Donald Trump, in that speech, it's kind of hard to believe. He's talking about words. Words are important. He described free trade as rape. Let's meditate on that for a second here. I'm going to play a little exercise. We diagram sentences like in 8th grade English. Okay, rape is when usually someone takes a penis and forces it into someone's orifice without their consent. And I'm sorry for my strong words, but I'm just defining the word that Donald Trump, the nominee for the Republican Party, the party of capitalism and free trade, used to describe free trade. He described it as rape. So that's what rape is. What trade is that, hey, Wayne, I think your book's great. I'd like to give you $19.99 for it. Wayne says, here's my book. And we're both happy. That's what trade actually is. It is not rape. Donald Trump is describing NAFTA as the worst public policy of the last 50 years. He says manufacturing in this country is dead. Manufacturing in this country since NAFTA is up 54%. He talks nonsense every day about capitalism, the thing that we're supposed to like him for because he engages in it, sometimes with the help of things that he also likes that we don't, like using eminent domain for personal profits from people's private properties. Let's think through some of his other policies, okay? So he has said, and I guess we're not supposed to take what he says seriously, but I'm sorry, work in journalism, I try to listen to what people say, including Hillary Clinton, who talks bollocks every day, and you take what she says seriously, and you work out the logic of such idiotic things as $15 minimum wages. So Donald Trump says he wants to deport 11 million illegal immigrants in 2 years. Okay, let's take the low number for my sake of argument, okay? But he has also said, which got less press, that we also should deport legal immigrant children of illegal immigrants, okay? American citizens, they have a passport, they were born here, they are U.S. citizens. He wants to deport 4 million. Those were estimated 4 million. This is for the 11 million figure. If we got a 30, maybe there's a 7, but let's just work with 11 and 4 for this case. Let's think through the math of deporting 4 million U.S. citizens in 2 years. That's 5,450 a day. 5,450 a day? He did nothing of the sort.
So
nothing of the sort.
Keep going. You got a minute.
Got a minute. So what would you have to do in order to do that? People who are illegal immigrants don't have a big red flashing sign on their forehead saying, I'm an illegal immigrant. Ask me about it. They're on work sites, they're in hotel rooms and everything like that. You would have to erect a police state in order to do this. And there is no such thing. You could be a hawk against illegal immigration. I understand it. My wife is a bit of a hawk against illegal immigration as a legal immigrant herself. However, there is no such thing as a strong weapon against illegal immigrations that doesn't affect the liberties of legal immigrants as well. There is no way to round up that number of people without having everybody here have to call attention to themselves and answer to the call of Donald Trump. So when you think about him and capitalism and think about him and the words, ask yourself, do you want someone who wants to undo the post-war idea of free trade as an American-led concept, regardless of how bad individual trade agreements are or how they foster some crony capitalism, which they totally do. But he's going against free trade as a concept. And if that's what you're going to sign up to, understand that you're going against the basic freedom of someone to buy what they want to buy. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. These are 4 fiery statements. Great. Let me take the moderator's prerogative. I'm going to ask each side a quick question. If you both want to answer, you can. Or just one of you.
Do we not get a chance to do a quick rebuttal to what we just heard? Is that not happening?
No, we don't. Okay? All right.
Okay.
But what, for the pro-Trump side, I want to ask the question, Donald Trump's foreign policy. Are you in favor of checking all Muslims coming into the country? Are you in favor of bombing the shit out? I believe that's an exact quote of pretty much everybody. Like, he's not exactly sure who lives in Iraq or Syria or the Middle East. He knows that it's to the east of New York City. Is his foreign policy viable, and is it America first if it in fact is continuing all sorts of operations that we're doing now under the Obama regime, which extends what the Bush administration was doing?
There's so many things, there's so many different parts of your question, it's hard to even come up with all the answers
Make
in a short
positive
fashion.
Defense of
but
what is
the
his foreign policy and is it good for freedom?
The problem I've had with the Libertarian Party and libertarians is they make everything super intellectual. Let me make it simple. I grew up with a kid who's the nicest kid you've ever met, and he's made $50 million. We've been friends since we were 3 years old. And this morning, not knowing I'm at this debate, he sent me a text this morning. And he's the nicest guy you've ever met, and he's never hurt anybody in his life on purpose. And he watched what happened in Nice, France last night, and he sent me a text and said, any human being that would let any Muslim into the United States, nothing wrong with Muslims in the United States, but anyone who wants to import Muslims is asking for death to our children. That's a common sense thought that millions of Americans are having. Millions and millions. To this day, I believe it's one of the main reasons Donald Trump is so popular, because he says what the average person is thinking.
Is a great
hold on,
way to
okay,
really
Wayne.
popular.
So you're
butting into what I'm saying.
Wait, hold on.
You get your time. Relax. I'm not going to butt in on you.
Okay,
so what I'm saying is, number one, when I ran for the Libertarian presidential nomination, I had Donald Trump's foreign policy. I said, I don't want us to be the world's policeman. I don't want us to spend the money we're spending, but I don't think we should be isolationists, and I think it's been proven by Obama that if we're isolationists, the world falls apart if America doesn't lead.
Obama is an isolationist.
What world
no,
do you live in?
what Obama has proven is if America doesn't lead, the world falls apart. So what's the answer in the middle? I said it when I ran for the LP nomination, and Donald Trump's the only other guy I've ever heard say
This
it.
is sheer fantasy.
Let's fight.
Fantasy.
Let's protect South Korea and Japan and Germany, and let's charge them and turn the defense industry into a profit center. That's the way to do it.
And I'll add one thing.
Dan. Yes,
I'll add one thing to that. So when he talks about banning all Muslims, Donald Trump wants to ban all Muslims. He actually said, okay, what we need to do is have a temporary ban on Muslims, and as he expounded on that, from certain countries.
Right.
All right. So you know what? It's probably, when you think about, okay, do we want to import Muslims from Syria? Well, let's take a look at who's coming. 72%, and not from my own statistics, from the United States or the United Nations, 72% of all Syrian refugees are fighting-age males. Fighting-age males, 72%.
Actually, that is not true from the UN, and it's certainly not the ones entering the United States.
How many of 72 or 71? I'll put it this way, it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too much.
Can I make the last point?
All right, hold on now. No. We're going to go to this, and then start, if you want to ask a question, and it's got to be a 20-second question, you can start lining up here, because we're throwing it open, right? Anybody who wants to come here and feel the furnace blast of intellectual power coming out straight down here like the Batmobile's engine. But I
have one stat I want to throw out.
All right.
This audience is both libertarian and conservative, and everyone agrees you're for smaller government, correct? Do we have an agreement on that? Well, 79% of every Muslim who has entered the United States in the last 10 years is on welfare and food stamps. Fact from the Labor Department of the United States. We're 19 trillion in debt. We cannot afford it.
How many lies are you going to tell them?
Okay.
You're just going to stand
so
there?
You're a liberal, not a libertarian, if you don't believe that stat.
Okay.
Say anything.
Fellas.
Liberal.
Fellas. You see what Donald Trump is tearing this country apart. On the anti-Trump side, how do you, do you need to respond to the charge, which I think was implicit in part of what both Dan and Wayne were saying, is that a vote against Trump is ultimately a vote for Hillary Clinton?
That's just an old anti-third party argument that is only made fresh here because it's made by someone who was a candidate for the third party, which I really appreciate as a general matter. Couple things. 50% of Syrian refugees in this country are women. It's not 72% fighting-age males. There's a difference between the refugees who come to Europe and the ones who come here.
And there's never been a female suicide bomber. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
How many, Wayne? I mean,
Could you not be a dick for a second? Another thing, Wayne was talking about cutting the size of government, which is great, and I think everybody here has that. Donald Trump, even more than Mitt Romney before him, and Romney was very much extreme in his field, is running to protect entitlements. He rejects Republican calls for saying, hey, we can't afford the entitlements that are coming down the pike. He's running explicitly against that. So if you're going to want to cut government, you have to actually propose things in government that you are going to cut. Donald Trump is not interested in that project, and that's an important thing.
He has not said a word about cutting government. He has no problem with it. He wants to take over the government, make it bigger, and impose his own central plans.
And we'll go to people now. Just this is something from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget.
Can I just say something about, Wayne,
Yes, Jeff.
One of the things that's interesting about would-be dictators is that people like fantasize about them. Oh, look at this amazing man. He's going to realize all my hopes and dreams. Everything I believe is embodied. And that's what you do with Trump. You know, I have friends of mine who have exactly the opposite view about what Donald Trump's going to do on foreign policy, and they favor him for that reason.
And I guess you were here.
Whatever nonsense is in your head, you attribute it to this guy. Oh, he's good. This is the same way people were about Obama.
Jeff, most of the people in this room were, I assume, here for my opening speech when I opened Freedom Fest. I don't have massive hopes for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I believe he'll be exactly like Ronald Reagan. He'll cut two things, taxes and regulations.
Ronald Reagan was against
Can
the
you let me
government.
finish?
Donald Trump is a celebrator of the state.
He's not.
He's
not. You're seeing things in him that you believe that are not true.
All right, you know what?
If Donald Trump came out for cutting the government, I would give him a
If
second
you go
listen.
back,
He is
Jeff,
not.
Jeff,
Everything he says is in favor of
okay.
insanity.
If you go back and look at videos.
Come on. All right.
Donald Trump's had the same views for 30 years on video since he was on Oprah Winfrey's show. Same exact views.
Silence.
30 straight
Silence.
years.
Okay, quick question or very well-crafted insult of a personal nature. Go.
It'll be a brief and simple question. It's for Matt and Jeffrey. Pretty much I agree with everything you're saying about Trump. Maybe not everything. Hypothetical question maybe, but lesser of two evils. If you had to pick, if you were forced to, a gun to your head, who would you really pick Hillary over Donald? Would you?
I would take the bullet because I refuse to live in a place.
Oh, come on, answer.
I would take the bullet. That is the answer.
Okay, there's no bullet.
We're not Australia.
There's a bullet to your wife's
head. Not guns to the head.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good question.
Guns to the head answer.
No.
Great question.
Okay, so.
And by the way, if I had a gun to my head and the only choice was Hillary or Gary Johnson, I'd vote for Gary Johnson in a nanosecond. There'd be no debate.
Yeah, but that's
so why can't you answer that question?
That's because in Hillary's America, there will be no
Stalin
guns.
or Hitler.
Right?
I'm for anyone who cuts taxes.
Quick question.
Dan, eminent domain. How many times has he tried to use eminent domain? And did he try to offer that lady a lot of money for that property before the eminent domain thing happened? And are they using that as a broad spectrum when he only did it how many times?
Okay.
Answer this very simple. Personally, I'm not for the use of eminent domain, but the 80-20 rule applies here, meaning that we got to stop thinking of political candidates as having everything that we want and that they're going to provide all the problems. And Trump doesn't have everything that I want, probably doesn't have everything that you want, but he's probably got more of what I want than less of what I don't want. And so when you look at it from that perspective, he fits that bill. And so we can focus on, I would say, probably the 20% that maybe we disagree with, and that happens to be part of that 20%, or we can focus on the 80. And I think that focusing on the 80% is where we're really going to find our clarity.
Thank you.
He described the Kelo versus the City of New London decision as that he agrees with it 100%, and that eminent domain used in such a way is a, quote, wonderful thing.
You know, this is a guy who was asked if we should return nationalized lands in the West to the states. He said, what? Are you out of your mind? Of course not. Then those belong to the whole country, the whole nation.
You're making Dan's point. I don't agree with him on that view if that's what he said.
So
but guess what? I don't agree with him on every view.
Okay.
I agree with him on every view.
We're gonna go back. Part of the 80-20 rule, by the way, too, is that originally Trump wanted to keep out Irish and Italians, but he's like, okay, we'll just go with the Syrians.
His attitude towards
he's a negotiator. Next.
Guys,
Question.
This man hates private property. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
I'll make it real simple for you gentlemen up there on the stage. Donald Trump was wrong. He said that I want to limit Islamic people coming to this country from certain other countries. He's wrong. We should eliminate them from all countries, and I'll tell you why. If you read the Quran, and then you will understand that there's no such thing as moderate Islam or radical Islam. It's all Islam. And when they come and rape your children and march out there with their headscarves in your neighborhoods and cut your throats and shoot up your schools, then you'll understand why Donald Trump's the only man. Thank you very much.
Can I respond to that?
A quick clarification.
Yeah, thank
Did you say we should eliminate all Muslims from the whole world? Is that what you just said?
No, I didn't say that yet. That's
Did I
later.
misunderstand you?
Okay.
All right, can I respond to that?
Yeah, very quickly.
So I'd like to respond with
Everybody
two.
listen to what he said. If you support Trump, you're in bed with his views. This
Yeah.
man is advocating mass murder all over the world. All right? That's what he
Okay,
favors.
thanks.
That's
All
what you
right.
favor. You support Trump, you favor that.
First, okay, thank you, sir. Let's
All
go
right,
to
so-
the next question.
Exterminationists.
Okay.
This is from the Hillary Clinton playbook. You know why? Because if you can't attack the candidate, attack the supporters of the candidate.
If you can't
and anytime
attack
you
the
can find something
candidate,
wrong with the
attack his
supporters,
position.
you attack
Right.
those people.
Thank you.
There's only two words that are really important: Supreme Court.
Right.
Okay.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
Okay, let's, can we have a, thank you.
Can I opine on that?
Very
Donald
quickly,
Trump,
please
whether you
opine.
love him or hate him, will name someone to that all-important 5-4 lead in the Supreme Court that will be for smaller government, conservative fiscal principles.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton will name an Obama type, and perhaps it will be Barack Obama to the United States Supreme Court. That's called a nightmare.
Wait, so you're saying Trump might
Trump has
name
named the people he would name.
It
Trump
could be
might
Loretta Lynch.
name
Loretta
a
Lynch
bunch
could be too.
more.
Could be Loretta Lynch.
A bunch more John Roberts, and then the Obamacare decision could be unanimous.
Terrible
It
thing. I
works
agree.
great. Okay.
Listen.
Thank you.
I agree.
Next.
The chances of a third-party candidate winning in this election are, in my opinion, zilch. So it really comes down between the two of them. And I would have picked any other candidate from the 17 that ran for the Republican nomination other than Donald Trump. But I am going to vote for him.
No, I
Thank you.
understand.
Thank you.
But you know what?
Smart move.
Okay,
You know
stop.
Smart move.
Please,
Sir,
please.
just really
Okay,
quickly, sir,
very
you know,
quickly.
nobody believed that Trump was going to win the Republican nomination either. History is full of surprises, and politics is very unstable right now.
Hey,
You know, you
Jeffrey,
can't write off
by the
third
way,
party.
Jeffrey, one person in America picked Donald Trump to win it from day one, and that was me on national TV hundreds of times. Who said it? Rachel Maddow on
My
MSNBC.
point is
Wainwright
that
called it from
history
day
is
one.
not written.
All right.
You write history.
This is a question more for the people. Is this a debate maybe against 3 versus 2? Is the moderator being fair?
I'm the moderator. I make the rules. This is Donald Trump's America. I've got my thumb on the scale. Next.
Americans need to wake up. You guys need to wake up. I lost the country to communism. And if you do not wake up, that you have been infiltrated by the communists.
Correct.
And you have been infiltrated by the Islamists.
Yes.
You will
Agreed.
have destruction in
Agreed.
America. I lost one country. I don't want to lose another one.
What country?
Legal immigration.
Stop,
I am
stop,
for
yes.
Donald
Thank you.
Trump.
Yes.
Can you
Woo.
can you tell us what country you emigrated from?
Managua, Nicaragua.
Okay.
And I have millions of people that have lost the country, like Cubans, like Russians, like Venezuelans, and they're all praying on their knees that the American born appreciate their country. It's going away for our children and grandchildren. You're not preserving it.
You're
because
suffering.
you're divided.
Your suffering is certainly something that we all take seriously, and I'm sure we all have an open heart to that. But you also realize you're supporting a candidate who, if you were coming here now, would be like, tough luck, baby.
No, that's
Go
not
sit.
true. Not true.
What are you talking about?
Not true at all. Not
What
true.
is this immigration plan? Are you nuts? How much more open can he be?
Donald Trump, Donald Trump believes in the exact same immigration policy that I do. The more legals that come, the more we love you and we want you. If you're illegal,
He's not
get
talking
out of
about
my
legal
damn
immigration.
country.
Okay,
Legal
yes, ma'am.
good, illegal
stop.
bad.
Please finish your
Simple.
thought and then, yes.
Donald Trump has been well loved in Latin America. He is well loved in Latin America because he elevated the beauty queens, the people that won the beauty contests. And so, and you know, he gives them opportunities.
Okay.
Now, I'm a Florida person, and I know that in Florida, Donald Trump is very popular with the Latinos because we know he is a fair man, and he's a very noble person.
Thank you.
We know him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, stop.
I also flew for Pan American, and wherever I went, I've been to. I was a flight attendant. I saw Donald Trump towers all over the world.
Thank you.
That's international.
You know, she's making a lot of good points.
We love you.
Thank you. Next.
Visit
Thank you.
Legal
Can we?
Immigrants for America.
Yes, liberty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm starting to think.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think Trump might be onto something with Latinos. You know, it's
legal immigration.
By the way,
Good.
I do want to point out that Matt Welch was a runner-up in one of the Miss Universe pageants that Donald Trump did. Thank you.
I can appreciate wild enthusiasm or concerns about things, but I got to say, Nick, I'm disappointed you have shown bias in running this. Don't like this. Jeff,
he is disappointed in me for showing bias. Yes.
And Jeffrey, particularly, you kill your case. Trump has said he's going to cut the EPA down. He's going to cut down all kinds of government agencies.
Fascinating.
That's what he has said. He's going to help the coal industry that's been decimated by Obama.
He said he's going to eliminate government agencies? What other agencies is he going to eliminate?
Several.
I can't believe that I missed that
Several
speech.
he has said he's cutting. Education.
That's amazing.
Well, I'd like to make the point that Ronald Reagan turned the worst economy in world history, other than the Great Depression, into the best economic expansion and the longest in world history.
What are you talking about? We just
That's a fact.
Wait,
shut up.
Stop. Wayne, please.
Wait. Hey, moderator.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, moderator.
Wait.
Do you allow?
Stop.
Do you allow him to say shut
Please.
up? Do you really allow him to say shut up?
A semblance. Two things, please. Please, thank you. Two things. A moderator's role is to facilitate a lively and interesting debate. And on that ground, I want to applaud myself. More to the point, let's get on to the next question.
Is your job to prevent verbal abuse?
No, it's actually to facilitate it and promote it.
Microaggression.
That's in my contract. Go.
Okay. I think in a normal year, indeed, a third-party candidate would have no chance. I think in this year, it might be just as likely as a camel through the eye of a needle. It might possibly happen. But I have one question for Matt, and that is, would you rather vote for the guy whose tax plan is written by Larry Kudlow and Stephen Moore, or rather for the candidate whose tax plan is written by Paul Krugman and Larry Summers?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Good job.
This also applies to foreign policy, and I know there's some of my libertarian friends have expressed enthusiasm about Donald Trump's foreign policy because he's not a neoconservative. He won South Carolina by bashing Bush family foreign policy and American foreign adventurism, and there's something very good and healthy about that in my opinion. Here's a problem with relying on an advisor to help your candidate too much. If the candidate isn't smart about the underlying policy, if he doesn't have a set of bedrock goals or principles that you can identify, then it's very tough to trust whoever that is. It doesn't matter if it's Donald Trump or Judge. Wait a second, I'm not done. Wait. This is what I would refer to as the George W. Bush problem. George W. Bush was not all that interested in foreign policy as a candidate. He did say good things from my point of view, maybe not Wayne's, but about, and I'd say that, I don't know, but like that we need to have a humble foreign policy, no nation building, and this kind of stuff. But what happens when there's a crisis? When there's a crisis, the advisors come in and say, you do this, and if you lack your own sense of personal lodestar, then you are going to attack in any number of directions, which I think is what happened to George W. Bush's foreign policy after 9/11. And so advisors aren't enough in this case for me. That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, hold on. Wait. Now,
Moderator, we don't get to respond?
We've got 3 minutes and 50 seconds, and we got to take a vote. We have 4 people. If you can say very quickly, and we have just one answer from each person, 20 seconds, go.
What's your definition of legal and illegal immigrants?
Okay.
It's just the label the government put
label.
on people's.
Thank you.
It's the law.
Head.
It's not a label.
Stop. Thank you.
I came here as a legal immigrant, as a student.
Wait, legal?
Stop.
Legal?
Hold on.
Legal.
Wait. Yes.
Then I finished my study. If I didn't leave the country, I will be illegal one day after. I didn't change. What I do for this country didn't change. But the government will put me into a totally different category. That's what you are talking about.
Okay, so what? Yeah, what is? How do you? Is
Either
there a
you have-
stable definition
Yeah,
of
there's an
legal
easy
and illegal?
definition. Either you have a nation of laws or you don't. I've never broken a law in my life. I've never been charged. I've never gone to prison.
never have
And
broken
if you
a law
have,
in your
then you
life?
should go to prison. Simple as that.
All
If you
right.
break a law,
Thank you.
go to jail.
Okay, next.
I would just like to point out a statistic that 67% of Donald Trump's wives are immigrants.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's. And with any
And
luck,
he's got very good taste in immigrants.
In the next 20 years, you might buck that up to 80 or 90. So thank you. Next question.
I come from India and I've seen the absurd trade policy over there. The only trade policy which works is unilateral free trade. The only trade policy which works, fair trade is free trade, that's all. And we saw Trump's person today saying that there will be fair trade and not free trade. We are libertarians over here. How can you support Donald Trump when he says there will be fair trade and I'll negotiate trade agreements?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Dan, do you want to take it?
So free trade is actually a misnomer. So it's like, take the TPP, okay? So the TPP actually is built for goods and services that aren't made in any of the TPP member countries. They're actually made for goods and services that are built in China and made in China. And when it comes to free trade and fair...
Stop. Just quickly, Dan, we have a minute and a half. We've got to get through your answer and one final question.
This is very simple. If they are making air conditioners in Vietnam and the Vietnamese government is subsidizing those air conditioners so that they become lower cost than the air conditioners made here, then we need to have recourse. And going to a TPP board where we don't have an equal say, or when we're supplying 2/3 of the actual trade volume in TPP, it doesn't make sense for us.
This is the final
great
question. Ma'am, please. Thank you.
I have 35 years experience as a professional speaker, debater, and moderator. My greatest disappointment in 2012 in the debates was the biased moderator. I have been very disappointed, Nick.
Thank you.
I teach people how to be speakers and moderators, and you need to be unbiased because the job of a moderator is to be fair, unbiased, and allow them to duke it out.
Thank you. Okay. That is, I'm happy to take some of the heat from these four people. We have, no, that's it. I'm sorry, sir. No, sit down. Cut his mic. Cut his mic. We have to take a vote. We have to take a vote now. What I want, look, sorry. No. Time's over. We need to, if you believe that the pro-Trump side of Dan Mangru and Wayne Allen Root, known as War to His Friends, were the winners, please raise your hands right now. Okay. Make a noise. If you believe that the anti-Trump side of Matt Welch and Jeff Tucker were more convincing in their arguments, please raise your hand and make a noise now. All right. And if you believe that I was an utter, complete failure as moderator of this debate, go screw yourselves. Okay, but I'm afraid, or I'm not afraid, I will report, because you can't see the audience's hands if you're in it, that the pro-Trump side prevailed in this. So thank you all for coming. We'll continue to talk and argue and shout about this the rest of the weekend. Thank you all.